Hello and welcome back to the final part of this evening's programme, to some ska music to end on. And one of the most prolific music labels in the genre, Two Tone, have spanned some of the greats in the music that influenced the 70s and 80s. For author Daniel Rachel has explored the history and the legacy of Two Tone, the musicians they made famous and the music they produced. Well, we spoke to him about the book Too Much Too Young, the Two Tone Records story.
I mean, ska music originates from Jamaica in the 1960s, but the difference in what two-tone bands did with ska music by the late 1979 and into 1980 was that they fused elements of everything that had happened in between, which was rock and disco and punk. And so that combination of those musical styles with musical quotations from ska really hit me as a schoolboy. But I think more important that two-tone was originated by Jerry Dammers, and the book is really the story of Jerry and how he formed the concept of two-tone. And he certainly said that he wanted it to be like so there'd be a very identifiable sound. Two-tone would have an identifiable sound, and there would be a certain element of a production line of singles with iconic logos and whatever else. So and of course it was born in Coventry before it came to London and the greater world, and Coventry was the home of the motor vehicle famously in the 60s and 70s, so it was perfect.
Why do you think that Two-Tone Records and its bringing in of ska music in general created such a scene and such a fan base for itself in the early 80s and onwards?
Well, Two-Tone worked on various levels. I mean, as I say, first of all, the music was so exuberant and it was exciting and thrilling, so you bought into that. Then there was the clothing of the very distinguished look, which was a combination of 60s mod and 60s skinhead, and then the rude boy from Jamaica. So there was a fashion that almost looked like a school uniform. So you could very quickly adapt what you had, like black stay-pressed trousers, a white shirt, and then just over the school badge put some badges instead of the emblem of your school. But then I think perhaps most importantly, Two-Tone reflected the social and political times, the gender struggles, the class struggles, and the race, class struggles and race, and that was very prominent on the streets of Britain, whether it was through right-wing movements and neo-Nazis. And the lyricism of Two-Tone spoke about that on a very street level.
Two-Tone's records, they were quite political in nature, weren't they? They had quite a strong anti-fascism, anti-authoritarian message and themes in them often, didn't they?
No, incredibly so. I mean, Too Much Pressure talks about the pressures of life. Too Much Too Young talks about teenage pregnancy. Ghost Town talks about a decaying, deindustrialized country. I mean, song after song after song. And then ultimately, Nelson Mandela, the chant Free Nelson Mandela, which was the day that Nelson Mandela himself was there on stage. You know, they resonated, but I think, to reiterate, because they came with very strong melodies and great musicianship, that's why Two-Tone commercially eclipsed punk, and that's why there's so much meat and flavour that I was able to draw on for Too Much Too Young.
Researching this book, because you wrote a whole book about it, clearly you're passionate about the subject. Are there any interesting bits of historical information, trivia, or anything like that you discovered?
Because I spoke to 100 people, virtually every musician in every band, the record company, the people around the scenes, even Two-Tone Tess, who ran the Two-Tone fan club. And I think that the story of Two-Tone is very contradictory, because you're mixing men and women, black and white, different cultures coming together. And the Two-Tone artists were saying there may be troubles on the in society and in political life, but we've got troubles ourselves in the band trying to blend all these different mixes. And for many, for the first time ever in their life, you know, we take for granted today black and white musicians on stage. In 1979, that was relatively rare, if never seen before. And so in the book, I'm revealing what so many of these people are saying from their perspective, and inevitably there's clashes of opinion. Somebody will say this happened, another will say that happened, or there's arguments that are still raging, to be honest. And I think all of that is what makes two-tone such a fascinating subject, and it's also what gave those bands in the first place the tension that you always felt in the records and felt when you saw them live, juxtaposed with the joy. And if you don't have one or the other, you don't have two-tone.
There you go, Too Much Too Young, the two-tone record story is in all bookstores now. Right.